Hi, welcome to the August edition of the Extension Network. My name is Renee Lemon. I'm the Master Gardener Coordinator for UGA Cooperative Extension in Cobb County. Today we're here to do a couple things. We're at Hyde Farm, and this is the Hyde Farm Community Garden. I am going to talk to you about our 2019 Master Gardener Extension Volunteer Training. This is the application. You can find it online at cobbmastergardeners.com or on the Extension website. These applications are due October the 3rd. They are now available online, so you have several months to print it off and fill it out. And the Master Gardener classes in 2019 will run from January the 9th until April the 1st. And we will train every Wednesday all day at DeKalb Extension. And usually Cobb County volunteers carpool, so that's a fun experience too. So if you're interested in becoming a Cobb County Master Gardener, please go to our website, find the application, fill it out, and get it back to me by October the 3rd. Now, if you have any questions, you can call me at Cobb Extension, and the number is 770-528-4070. Now, we're out here today because Terry is in the back pulling some herbs because we are going to do a class on preserving herbs in the fall. Today I know that she's out here and she's harvesting tomatoes, basil, rosemary, oregano, and mint. And we're going to go into the kitchen in a few minutes, and Terry's going to show us how we can take our summer herbs and we can preserve them and use them all winter long. If you have any questions about preserving your herbs or gardening, please call Cobb Extension at 770-528-4070. Thank you.
How long have we been married there?
For 76 years.
He was kind and generous to me before we married, and he was kind and generous to me all these years that we have been married. We had been looking at a lot of different houses in different places around that area, and when we came by this house, it was green, and I love green. I'm Irish. And so I said, oh, there's our house. I know it. We decided on Meals on Wheels because at my age, I was getting to the point where I couldn't do all the things that I had been able to do. We're the Spans. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Terry Carter with the Extension Network, the Family and Consumer Science Department. We were just in the garden and we had an opportunity to harvest some herbs. So let's look at what we have. First of all, let me say that I love going out in the garden, even this time of year when it's the middle of the summer. It's a great experience. I actually started my career here at Extension in the garden. I started out as a Master Gardener, and it led to all of this. I applied to the Master Gardener program, and this lovely lady, the Master Gardener Coordinator, Renee Lemon, accepted me into that program. It's a wonderful opportunity for me doing what I do because I am family and consumer science. So we're all about educating people about healthy lifestyles. So what better way to start out on a healthy lifestyle than actually growing your own food and harvesting it from the garden. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So as a Master Gardener, I have an opportunity to visit a lot of different community gardens because I work with them. And so in those gardens, I see a lot of different things that are being grown. So just wanted to share with you today what we harvested from the garden. Not only did we have herbs, we also have tomatoes. And we have quite a few different kinds of tomatoes. And if you look here, all of these tomatoes were actually harvested from the community garden. And I see at least about 4 or 5 different tomatoes. And of these tomatoes, probably my favorite one would be the little tiny ones that are right here in the front. Those are really special to me because most of these tomatoes, you won't be able to purchase them in a store. You would have to grow them yourself. So if you look at those, they have those really dark, you would call them black, but they're not really black, but they're very dark shoulders. And those shoulders will start out dark. And if you see the green tomato, it starts out green, dark, and then the green part actually turns red. That's how you know that tomato is ready. And we also have some very tiny pear-shaped tomatoes, another one of my favorite tomatoes as well because it's so sweet. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about what you can do with all of this stuff, because in the middle of July and August, you're going to start to really get a huge bounty of food from the garden, and you can easily get overwhelmed. Once all of your work comes to fruition, you started this process of growing food maybe back in December, at least I did, because I started to order seeds from my favorite seed companies around December or January, because that is when you want to start thinking about your garden. So you order your seeds, and after you order your seeds, you start to plant them. I start mine indoors in about February or March, let them go and get them ready to go out in the garden around mid-May, because here in Georgia, sometime we'll have a late freeze. So I wait until mid-May to get all of my plants out, especially those that are very sensitive. So we have our bounty of vegetables coming in. So what do you do with all these things? Well, you have some options here. And let's go over what those options are. You have three major ways of preserving your bounty from the garden. So let's look at those. The old-fashioned way would be canning, and canning meaning that you're taking fruits or vegetables, you're putting them in a jar, and you're going through the proper process of canning them. And we have some actually here that we've already canned. And let me tell you the difference about canning. You have two methods of canning. You have the boiling water canning, and then you have pressure canning. Two different processes. You have to know which one of those to use based on what you're canning. When you're looking at jams and jellies, those have a very high sugar content, and this is jelly here. And with that, all you have to do is a boiling water canning, meaning that you're taking a large pot, you're boiling the water, sterilizing your jars, filling them properly, putting them in the canner for the exact amount of time. Now, how do I know how long to do this and how to do this? Well, we have a solution for you. What you want to do is go by a recipe. Now, here at Extension, we have recipes that have been tested over and over again. We have a book that we use, which is called So Easy to Preserve. This book is put out by UGA. It's available at your local extension offices. This is the only source that I use for canning, because as a UGA employee, this is the only source that we are supposed to use. These recipes have been tested over and over again, so we know that they work. Sometime we'll get a call in the office and someone will say, oh, I have a recipe that my grandmother passed down, and this recipe may be 50 or 100 years old. And they'll ask me, well, what did I do wrong? It didn't come out right. So the first thing I'm going to ask them is, what recipe did you use and where did that recipe come from? And so I will tell them at that time, we have to use the So Easy to Preserve recipes, because we know that the proper utensils are being used, the proper canning time is being adhered to. So this is what we go to. So if you call us, we will give you a recipe from this book. You can purchase the book for $20, or if you don't want to purchase the entire book and you just have some questions, you can also go online to UGA Publications, and we have all different kinds of publications available to you. Some of them will look like these, and you can take these. This one says freezing vegetables, and we're going to look at this one today because we will be showing you how to blanch and freeze the tomatoes. So this one is available online, and if you can't print it out, you can also come by the extension office and pick it up, or we can email it to you as well. So there are a lot of different ways to get a recipe to you, because we want to make sure that you're properly preserving. So this one is simply your freezing vegetables. We have other ones here on jams and jellies. We have one for just about every kind of fruit and vegetable that you would use. So contact us if you have questions. So we talked about canning, and we said that canning is an exact science that has to be done properly. So what other options do we have for this bounty. We also have dehydrating and freezing. And dehydrating is one that I really love to do. It's easy to do, doesn't require much. So let's talk about dehydrating and how you dehydrate that. One of the things I like to dehydrate more than anything else would be herbs, because herbs are easy to do. It doesn't require any special equipment. We do have a dehydrator here, but for the herbs, you really don't have to use a dehydrator. You can simply leave the herbs out and they will dehydrate on their own. But you can use a dehydrator, but you have to be careful that you don't leave it in there too long. Now, what I want to show you is some oregano that I've dehydrated. This is a jar of oregano, and this oregano was actually dehydrated last season. So I gathered this at the end of last season, meaning in 2017. So this has been sitting there for a year. As you can see, it's still green, and we smelled it. It still smelled very well. Now here's the same oregano that we got out of the garden this year. We just harvested that. So all you have to do is let it dry out. And once it dries out, you just simply pull your stems off. You can store it in a nice jar like this, which I really like because you can see it and you can tell what's going on with it. But you could also put it in a Ziploc bag, but I think this is the best way to do it. So to dehydrate your vegetables, once again, you take them, and here you have the oregano, and you can turn it upside down, which some people like to turn it upside down, tie it and hang it up. That's fine, but you don't have to do all that. You could also do it in the oven, but that's not necessary either. To me, the easiest way is just to leave it out on a paper plate or something like that, a paper towel, and just let it dehydrate on its own, okay? So what else can we do with the herbs? We can also freeze our herbs. So we have this process that I really love, and we use old-fashioned ice cube trays. So what do we do with our ice cube trays? We're going to take our olive oil, and we're going to take our herbs that we've already dried. So we would take the herbs, fill them up in the ice trays. Now you can use one kind of herb, or you could use several. You could use a mix of your oregano, your basil, your rosemary, and we also have mint here. I wouldn't put the mint in with that, but you have at least 3 herbs here, so you can mix these herbs together in one little cell, or you can separate them. It depends on how you want to use them. Now once you put that into your ice tray, you just want to take some olive oil, and most people don't know that olive oil does freeze. And you just take your olive oil, pour it into the tray until it fills up. And you would do this until you get all of these filled. Place this in your freezer until it's completely frozen. And once it's completely frozen, you'll take your ice trays, flip them out just the old-fashioned way, and then you place them into a Ziploc bag and place them back in the freezer. You can also do this with butter. You can make a mix of oil and butter. It's your preference. It's totally up to you and what you feel more comfortable with and how you're going to use it. Now, once these are frozen, you can use these to cook fish, to cook chicken, to cook vegetables. They have a lot of different uses once they're frozen. Basically, we're making this a very simple process for you to pop it out of the freezer and use it immediately with your fresh herbs that you grew yourself, okay? So that's how you do the frozen herbs, and we'll put this to the side, all right? Now, what else do we have here? We have our tomatoes. So let's talk about freezing tomatoes and how you would freeze tomatoes, or how you would freeze really any vegetables. Once again, we have our how to freeze preserving foods, and it will tell you exactly what to do. We don't want you to guess about it. So we have tomatoes here. So what I'm going to do is take my brochure here, and I have tomatoes here on the back. So we have every vegetable listed here that we would grow. So I'm just going to look at mine that says tomato here, and we read what it says. And what it says is wash, dip in boiling water for 30 seconds to loosen the skin. Then you're going to peel, core, leave whole, or cut in pieces. So you have options here, and it's totally up to you. Then you're going to package it, seal it, and freeze it. And when you're freezing, we want to make sure that you're actually using a freezer bag. And the bag that you get from the store will say freezer bag, not just a Ziploc bag. So make sure you're using a freezer bag. The reason we say that is because if you're using a regular plastic bag, you will get a lot of odors from the freezer in there. Using the freezer bags is thicker, so it will protect your fruits and vegetables much better in the freezer. And even if you're using a plastic container, make sure that plastic container says a freezer container, okay? So let's talk about one of my favorite methods, which is to dehydrate the tomatoes. So when you're going to dehydrate tomatoes, it's best to use a smaller tomato for dehydrating. And so we have all these different sizes here. And if I were to choose one to dehydrate, I would definitely choose the Roma tomato, because to me it's the perfect size. And these are our Roma tomatoes. But I've also dehydrated these tiny ones and these. Now the larger ones I wouldn't recommend dehydrating because they have so much liquid in them. What I would do would be the freezing method with those, where you take them, put them in the water, and let me briefly go over that. You're going to take your tomatoes in order to freeze them, the larger ones. You have a pot of boiling water here. Once again, we're going to go back to our methods of doing this and read what it says. So this is a pot of boiling water. So you would take your tomatoes, place them in the water, let them boil for the specified time, which we read says 30 seconds. You take them out of that, and then you're going to place them into another container of very cold or ice water, preferably ice water. Now, why do we do that? We do that because you want to immediately stop the cooking process. So taking it out of the hot boiling water, putting it in cold water will stop that cooking process immediately. You let it cool, then you fill your bags with that. And after your bags are filled, you place them in the freezer. Now, deciding what option to use for your vegetable is totally up to you. It depends on a lot of factors. Where do you have room? Do you have more room in your freezer? Do you have more room on the shelf for canning? Do you have room for dehydrating? You have to ask yourself also, how much do I have? Do I have 2 bushels, or do I just have a pound of those? So all these things will factor into deciding what method you use. Me, I'm very busy, so canning is something I don't get around to, but I do have time to freeze things, and I also have time to dehydrate. So to dehydrate, we've selected our Roma tomatoes. And so we've already washed these. So you have an option. You could cut them in half, which would take longer time, or you can cut them this way, slice them pretty thinly. And once again, we choose the Roma tomatoes simply because they don't have a lot of liquid in them, so they'll dehydrate a lot quicker. So this is all you have to do. Take them, get them sliced up, and then you're going to take your rack from your dehydrator, and you can actually fill this up with as many as it will hold. You want to make sure that they're not touching. So if we had this whole thing filled up, try and keep airspace between them so they're not touching, because if they're touching, they tend to not dry out and take a longer time. So once you have this tray filled up with your tomatoes, you want to put them on your dehydrator and let them dehydrate. Okay, so I'm going to set these to the side, and I'm going to show you, for the sake of time, what they look like after they've been dehydrated. This is what they look like. They have lost a little bit of their color. They're a little bit darker. So at this point, your tomatoes are ready to go. We know that the moisture content is very low. So now we can take these once again and put them in the freezer. We can leave them out because they are dehydrated. These were actually done once again last season. So about last October, they're still in great condition after that amount of time. You can also put these in oil, so it's up to you how you store them once you've gotten them dehydrated, but they taste great. And what you want to remember is the way they go in is the way they're going to come out. So if they're not quite ripe and they're not as sweet, when they dehydrate, they won't taste as sweet. So a very ripe tomato will yield you a very, very good flavor. And that's all to it. Now, the dehydrator is fairly inexpensive. They're easy to find. I actually find most of mine at thrift stores, but one like this, you can probably find it in the stores for roughly under 60 bucks. I'm thinking 50 to 55 bucks for one. Now the dehydrators are different. Some will have a dial on them, so you can put it on high, low. Some will have temperatures, so some will have a fan on it. I definitely would recommend that you get one with a fan. Okay, so that is how you take care of the summer's bounty. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the Extension office to ask any questions you have, or if you need any recipes, please call us and we can help you with those recipes. Thank you.
land-grant university system was created to advance agricultural and mechanical sciences 150 plus years ago. And we realized that some of the research that was coming from out of the land grants, it was not reaching the people. So the Smith-Lever Act was passed 100 years ago. The purpose of that act was to create the Cooperative Extension Service, which was to take the research that was created by the land-grant universities and actually give it to the people who could use it.
And so that was the genesis for the creation of the Extension Service, or the Cooperative Extension Service, as it was called at that time. It was to take the research-based information from the university, from that land-grant school, and get it to the people who need it so that they could use it to improve their lives, their economy, and to improve agriculture.
Well, I lived on a farm until I went off to be in the Navy and to go to college. And my father was a very fine and aggressive farmer. And of course, the source of our advice when Daddy wanted to do something better or learn about a new species of peanut or cotton or corn was to go to the Extension Service. And they gave him whatever advice he needed. And it was just like a constant source of inspiration and advice and counsel, and sometimes correction when he was doing something wrong. And as I grew older and when I came back from the Navy and spent the next 17 years as a full-time farmer, I saw firsthand the great value of what the Extension Service offered to everyone in our county, not just farmers, but everybody in the merchants and others who did business with farmers and depended on agricultural income.
My earliest experience with the Cooperative Extension Service came as a result of joining the 4-H Club when I was probably in a middle school age group. They encouraged us to participate in competitions, and we had to learn our various project areas and make presentations in the local and the district competitions. And also, I began to show livestock as a part of my 4-H project and continued to do that for a number of years. So the Cooperative Extension Service and its supervision of 4-H was an important part of my younger years.
I serve Fulton County. It's a large county. We don't have that many farmers, but we have a lot of people. And we have a lot of families that just simply need help. So Extension brings that human touch to our community. We answer the questions directly. We give it to you in a manner that you can understand and you can use, and you can apply it immediately. So Extension is kind of like that friend next door. You may not talk to them every day, but you're really glad that they're there.
One of the advantages that we have is that we're always on the cutting edge of the newest information, the newest research that's coming out of the University of Georgia. And we are a direct source that our clients can come to find that information. We're a filter for that information, and we are able to explain it in a way that people can use it for practical everyday application, whether it's on the farm, in their families, or in their communities.
An increasingly important element of Georgia's and America's total production of food will have to be designed toward meeting the needs of our own country and other nations more than it has been in the past. So I think the gamut of influence of Extension Service, I don't think has been minimized in recent modern days, but I think the opportunities to expand their influence has been greatly increased now and I believe in the future.
I think the future for cooperative extension across the nation is very strong, and I know in our state it is.
The simple problems in agriculture have been solved, and they've been solved for the last 100 years or so. Only complex problems remain. Our researchers on our land-grant universities working in multidisciplinary teams will provide solutions for these complex and complicated problems. But how you transfer that information back to the farmer, back to the agribusiness, back to the family or the youth development specialists through 4-H is going to be very different. That's where cooperative extension has always been good. That's what their strength is, and that's where we see them being so important in the future.
We're continuing to see evolution in the production of agricultural products, and I expect that to continue. We will probably have fewer farms, but larger farms. And the Cooperative Extension Service certainly has a role to play in that new structure. They've adapted very well to the changing circumstances and the changing economy of our country over the last 100 years, and I have every reason to believe that they will continue to do that here in Georgia for the next 100 years.
The most rewarding part of my job is being able to help people and provide current research-based information for our clients. They come to us over and over for that information because they see us as the #1 source of information that they can rely upon, whether it's for their farm, their agribusiness, or for their families.
Real life changes. Extension brings real life changes, and being that agent in the community on the ground, being that agent to serve is a pretty miraculous thing.
In all the ways that I had an early developmental life in earning a living and learning how to live as a productive citizen, I would say the Extension Service had a major beneficial effect on me.